Good day, good night, and welcome to Soccer Today. World Cup today. It's World Cup today. Duane Rollins with myself, Kevin, Laramee, Duane. You know, there's never a dull moment covering soccer, World Cup, club soccer, national teams. There's always things happening when we don't necessarily anticipate it. And when I woke up this morning, I had no idea that Zinedine Zidane has resigned as coach of Real Madrid.
Yeah, if New York is the city that never sleeps, soccer is the sport that never sleeps. And certainly you open up Twitter, you open up Facebook, whatever you get your primary news. And most people, I think, start their day looking at a screen with one of those things. This was a bit of a surprise, and there's something new every day, it seems like. And then, well, there's other news, too, we'll talk about in a minute, I think, too, that's not quite as worldwide dramatic. But Zidane moving for Real Madrid. But the more you step back, we were talking about this off air just before we came on, the more you step back, the more it kind of makes sense from his perspective. I mean, if you're Zidane, what more can you do there?
What else? What else has left to be done? You just won 3 Champions League in a row. The only thing you haven't won is the Copa del Rey, and the only reason he hasn't won it is because he was either trying to win the league or win the Champions League at the exact same moment, and something's got to give. But yeah, what else is left to be done? Oh, you know...
Well... match Barca's quint season, go perfect in a year. But yeah, we're talking about such high bars.
Like Harlem Globetrotters versus Washington Generals type of conversation here. Like, this is crazy what he has done with Real Madrid. And, you know, we have been live daily during Zidane's entire run as a manager. And I'll wear the dunce hat because we didn't really give him credit for 3 years for this team, because like you put a cone in charge of this team and there's a very good chance they win 80% of their games just because of the roster and how this team is built. But what Zidane has been able to do is manage a room full of egos bigger than his own, which is not necessarily too small to start with. And you get yourself a vintage team, 3 Champions League in a row, records, crazy amount of trophies. Yeah, what is left to be done? There's no more challenge, at least for Zidane at Real Madrid.
Yeah, no, if you go way back in the archives, I think our initial thoughts were, well, this is a big personality to manage big people, and this is either going to go very, very wrong or very, very right. That's kind of what my perspective was at the time, and it went very right because he figured out fairly quickly, I think there were some initial bumps in the first year, but fairly quickly how to manage, as you say, and that's the key to managing Real Madrid. And you know, I think you're hearing rumors of Bale moving on. I think that one's probably going to happen because he wants to be the man somewhere. You're hearing the suggestions from Ronaldo moving on. This could be a very different team, and Zidane could have looked at the writing on the wall and went, you know what? I don't think it's necessary. I could win again next year, but it's going to be much more challenging. So I might as well step out on top and drop the mic. A literal mic drop this morning is kind of what he did.
Florentino Perez, the president of Real Madrid, was taken by surprise, was shocked when he heard the news when Zidane told him. And the way Zidane is talking is more like, this club will continue to win. This club needs to continue to evolve, to move in the right direction, and I think a change is needed. And in a way, I kind of understand. It's when you're at the pinnacle, it's when you're at the top that you need to look forward. You look at the future, and you look at what you want the future to be, and that's when you mold your blueprint, and that's where you continue to evolve. Zidane, yes, he has his licenses, but he doesn't have the experience like a manager that's been managing for 20 years that can use different tactics or coach or be an educator. And Zidane is not an educator. Zidane has been great his entire career. When something is really easy for you, it's hard to show to someone that it's not easy how to do it, because for you it's easy. Be like, come on, man, you know how to do this. It's easy. But no, maybe an educator is what is necessary for the next evolution of Real Madrid or their squad, or they'll build up to their next vintage team. It's going to take a few years, and it's going to start next year, but maybe it's that aspect too. And Zidane's like, yeah, I don't want to not win the Champions League. I want to be a manager and win, so I might as well step back, put an educator in place.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned exactly, and this is not a new thought by any means, but you have to have a certain level of physical literacy to be a manager, but you can't have almost too much, because if you have too much, it's just like, what do you mean you can't do that, bicycle kick in the 80th minute to win the game, right? That's kind of the what happens there, and then that's where the man management skills come in. And it's almost surprising that he was able to man manage. I'd be curious to see where he goes from here, because it's one thing to man manage superstars, and that's a whole skill onto its own. It's quite a different one to manage, like, say an MLS team where you have guys that are here, and I'm using my hands on a verbal podcast, but whatever, guys that are way up here, guys that are way down there, right? And how do you manage that? So I don't know what he does from here. He could just go sit on a beach. That could be his plan, and no one would begrudge him that. He can afford it, certainly.
Yeah, I made the gesture for you, Duane. So I did up here to down here. So we're good. People can
okay,
see
good.
But you're right, though. When you look at Zidane, he stopped playing, started coaching, and he started making his way up to Real Madrid, and he worked in the academy, and yeah, well, there's that. There's another aspect of this thing too. Zidane's got a son that's on upcoming. It's upcoming. He's coming through the pipeline, and he's going to play for Madrid very soon. But where is he going to go after? What is it going to be? Is Zidane want to be involved there? The father, I mean. There's a lot of speculations, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he doesn't coach anywhere next season.
No, there's just a select handful of clubs I think he could be successful at, and most of them have managers right now. It's interesting, though, turning it slightly different, this 3-year thing. I don't know when this became a rule, but the 3 years and leave has kind of become conventional thinking within the world of football around the world in terms of these high-ranking managers. You see it all the time, the 3-year itch, and they move on. It's the Mourinho joke. Now, in Mourinho and Pep's case, both of those guys have been known for this 3-year thing. They have stayed beyond the 3, and we'll see whether that gets stale or whether they can become, a long-term fixture at those respective Manchester clubs. I don't know, but this is, Zidane certainly has looked at it and went, I guess 3 and out. The other thing that some people are speculating is that France is not successful in winning the World Cup this year, then maybe there might be an opening there, and a national team management job for Zidane at the French level, which would be the only team you can ever imagine him managing, might make some sense too. And for a guy like that, a national team job might be perfect, because the day in, day out grind of a club team, even a club like Madrid, is a lot. When you have the wealth and ability to enjoy life like someone like Zidane does, but a national team manager where it's a little lower key, you only have them in for brief little sprints, and then you move away. Big personalities are good in that environment because you have to get their attention quickly. So that's another possibility I can see.
Come on, Duane. There's only one way to erase the souvenir of 2006. There's only one way to make the headbutt disappear in people's conversation. That's to raise the Jules Rimet trophy as manager and selector of France. And look, we're speculating here. Didier Deschamps, who's the current manager of France national team, his contract is due in 2020. That's not too far from now. That's just Euro. So maybe, even if they win the trophy, maybe Didier Deschamps wants to go back to the club side or a more day-to-day operation than the national team, and maybe Zidane is going to take a long vacation and then become the new France national manager. That would make sense, and that's probably the only speculation right now that I would believe.
Yeah, I mean, what's it mean for Madrid in terms of this thing? I think we've touched that a little bit. Do they take a step back? I think, obviously, if they lose the players that we're expecting them to lose, they will take a step back. But this is still an immensely talented team, and as you say, that pylon might be able to manage it. So we'll see. Well, we're going to find out whether a pylon could manage it, because or how much Zidane was involved very quickly.
Yeah, we will. In other news, in the World Cup side today, Paulo Guerrero, captain of Peru, one of the most important players to make Peru debut in the World Cup this year, was very important in the qualification stage for Peru. He was banned for cocaine usage out of.
We sorry to interject. We should say it was the whatever the part of cocaine is that makes it cocaine. It can also be found in other things, blah, 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 allegedly. Go on, Kevin.
Yeah, the cane part, which is the medicinal part that could be used to make lidocaine. It can be used to make other pharmaceuticals, yes. We don't know, but it was delayed. They've been put to the Court Arbitral du Sport in Switzerland, which freezes the case and is going to be heard after. It's going to be here after the World Cup, which means Paolo Guerrero can play the World Cup.
Yeah, effectively, what has happened here is that he was initially given a 2-year suspension. This is for a drug on the ban list, although it's a drug that even if he did take it accidentally or in a quote unquote supplement, which there's a lot of supplements that they accidentally take out there in the world, right? I would have think I'd have a little more respect. He said, yeah, I was doing lines at a party. It would have, I think, probably I would have had a little more respect than trying to beg off this.
I missed my window by a day. I thought I was going to be fine. The line was a bit too big and it stayed in my system. Man, what do you want? It's beautiful here in Peru.
At any rate, it's a recreational drug as opposed to a performance-enhancing drug that he got caught with, and I don't believe that recreational drugs should be on the ban list anyway. But that's my own thoughts coming out there. So I don't have a problem with him playing. I do think that they've essentially found a noble solution to this, because yes, it's not performance-enhancing. It's unfair, really, to the rest of his teammates and to Peru, the country, and its fans to take away a player of so much importance just before the World Cup because of a non-performance enhancing violation of the drug ban. In my mind, it's I don't know how to articulate that any different. It just seems unfair, unjust for a country like Peru, who hasn't been there in a long time, since '82.
Not just that, so, out of competition testing, what it was. Recreational drugs are not supposed to be included in this. It's only PEDs. So we had the same instances happen in the UFC with John Jones a few years ago with cocaine as well. When just a few days before his fight with Daniel Cormier, the guy was sniffing lines off the top of a bathroom and still kicked the other guy's bum on Saturday night. You see those things happen. Out of competition testing is for PEDs and not necessarily recreational drugs, even though they might figure out you have cocaine metabolites in your body. They can't do anything about it, and if they can, it won't hold up, and we're seeing this another case here with Paolo Guerrero. And in a way, it's fair to Peru. I still hope there's consequences, though, because, well, you can't just sniff cocaine all the time and go play and score goals at the World Cup and everything be okay. I guess something's got to give. But we'll see what happens. At least for the time being, Peru won't be penalized.
The consequence, what I've been reading this morning is that it suggests that this is essentially, they're deferring it. They've done this the Guru's side has put this appeal in with the hopes that they would delay the appeal. The CAS has done just that, allowing him to participate in the World Cup. He'll probably have to serve his 14 months. They actually, the first thing, it was 2 years, then it's been downgraded to 14 months, and they suspect he'll still have to serve a suspension starting, when the day after Peru goes out of the World Cup. So he's still going to face some consequences, assumedly. You got to have some consequences with these drugs are on a list. We can argue all I want about the morality of having recreational drugs on those lists, but they're on a list. And, there are elements of those kind of uppers that are used to mask other performance enhancers too, which is not necessarily this particular one, but that's why some of these drugs that don't make a lot of sense get on there. So hopefully it works out for hopefully he figures out how to not do that. And if it was an accident, how to be better taking care of themselves. Who the hell would take a supplement if they really were doing that without knowing everything that's in it? Like I wouldn't, if I was an athlete going to an Olympics, I wouldn't have a Skittle in my body that wasn't supposed to be there, let alone a drug of any kind or a supplement of any kind. I would be carrots. I'd eat nothing but carrots, Kevin.
Not just that, I would keep one closed bottle of everything that I'm taking just for analysis purposes in case I test positive. Like, here's another. World Cup today, live daily during the 2018 Russia FIFA World Cup. You can follow us on social media at Soccer Today SPN, at SportsPodNet, at 24th Minute for Duane, at Kev Laramee for myself. You can get ad-free versions of all the podcasts we do on our Patreon page, patreon.com/sportspodcasting network. $2 a month to unlock exclusive content like the Two Solid Dudes Soccer Podcast, and $5 a month to get ad-free versions of the show. And we're back, Duane, on World Cup today. Group B, we're going to give a little preview today of Group B. What a group. Half that group is like one of the big rivalries in the world of soccer. The other half of that group is meh. You got Spain, Portugal, Morocco, and Iran.
Yeah, well, exactly. Just as a quick aside, exactly 2 weeks from now, we'll be talking about games in this group. So this is something that's kind of fun to talk about there, to think about there. Sorry, exactly 2 weeks today, we'll be talking about games. So the World Cup is very close to us. Yeah, this is a lot of people look at this as the group of two halves. You got to be careful about that. We have seen World Cup groups in the past where they look like they'll go chalk and they haven't. Certainly right now, if you want to go on my Twitter feed, we can vote on the weakest groups of all time. I decided to have that as a subject of discussion. We'll figure that out, maybe discuss that on Monday or Friday's show in terms of what we found to be the weakest group of all time. This is certainly one of the most lopsided groups I've seen in a long time in terms of the top. That said, Kevin, what is Portugal? Therein lies the question in this. I think Morocco is a side. Any of those North African sides are always a side that can cause some problems, but they usually seem destined for third. I would suggest that that's probably where they are again. But again, it comes down to what is Portugal? What is a one-man team? They're not a one-man team anymore completely, but that golden generation is long past. But they, did get hot in the knockout stage of the Euros. They were third in their group in the Euros. We should remind people of that. That was the 2014 European Championship, and they got out as a third-place team. So, I don't know. What is Portugal?
Yeah, it'll be hard to replicate 2016 for Portugal, and you're looking at the depth of the field is a bit bigger, too. You're talking about the Euro of 24, and we're talking about the World Cup of 32, so there's a difference. And even though it was the weakest Euro in forever, 24 versus 16, but I do feel that Portugal, just because of the fact that Spain hasn't won the last World Cup, right? They've been knocked off their pedestal by not making it out of the group stage in Brazil, and by having a difficult time too internationally since then. So Portugal could think Spain is takeable. We got ourselves a team that can have results. We might have a lucky group where we can get out of our group without necessarily finishing third like in the last Euro. So for Portugal, you got yourself here a good chance. I do give this team more credit than in 2016 just because of the cast of supporting teammates for Ronaldo are a bit bigger. We're not talking about Eder anymore. Eder won't even be a problem. He won't be an hero. He won't be even the team. But we're looking at a matured teammates, at least for Ronaldo, and I feel like he doesn't have that sense I need to carry it all by myself, but maybe together we can do it. Maybe I'm exaggerating here, but I feel Ronaldo has more confidence in his teammates now than 2 years ago.
Yeah, perhaps. And obviously Ronaldo is on a different planet over the last couple of years as well. It has probably been the greatest run of time in his career, and he's coming off that 3 straight Champions League championships, obviously, too. So that's quite the run of form. The World Cup is something that Portugal has never been able to go to the very end in. It is a country that's very proud in its footballing, and certainly they will look at that, especially with their success of their neighbors the last part of last decade and eating into the first part of this decade. They will look at that. Now, speaking of their neighbors, they're in this group. The Iberian Derby will take place. Spain, you mentioned they haven't been to Spain of 2010 in a while, but they did have that 6-1 win over Argentina back in March that had a lot of people going, huh. Now, Argentina, we'll talk about that when we get to them, but Argentina has some issues of their own, so I don't know what quite to make of that result. A 1-1 draw with Germany just before that run, so that's not a bad result either. Spain is a funny country, too, in terms of some people have them winning it, some people have them struggling. Where do you fall?
Could be both. Like, which Spain is it? Is it 2008, 2010, 2012, or is it 2014 Spain? That's the question. And, yeah, when you're looking at Spain, it's an older team, but there's a young generation coming behind too. Yes, there's surprises. Morata didn't make the squad, and there's other surprises, but it's not a young Spain. But the way they're playing, legs are not necessarily that important. Yes, you need legs to pass the ball, but you don't run as much. So there's that aspect. What will be the evolution of tiki-taka too? Just talk about tactics for a second. Spain evolved and had a great way to play, lasted 6 years, and they were untouchable. The rest of the world figured it out, and now they had more difficulty, and they didn't even get out of the group in 2014. So how will Spain approach tactically how they play? Will they change a bit, bring a little flair to the tiki-taka that actually surprised everyone and reestablish their dominance? That is a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've seen it in the club side with the evolution towards this high press, rock and roll, heavy metal kind of football over the past few years. We certainly saw Liverpool take that all the way to a Champions League final. The tiki-taka teams, the two most successful tiki-taka teams out there right now are City and Barca, obviously, and they both won league championships. But that's a grind. In a tournament style, which the Champions League is, which the World Cup is that the right approach? Can you grind a way through? I think that there's something to be said about having a little bit more front foot football out there. Spain has been a little bit different in their tactics compared to their championship teams. That said, this is still a team that doesn't really have a forward on its roster. This is still a team that looks like it might be playing with one of those infamous false nine formations. So it doesn't seem like they move too far away from that, and you can't blame them. I mean, if you win a World Cup, you probably are going to be inclined to stick with the tactics that won them for a while. So yeah, that's something to watch for too. I tend to fall, Kevin, on the Spain will be good side of things, but like the Spain of the past before they won, there is an unpredictability about them in any major championship that really does make you go, it could be here, it could be there. They're like France without the drama when it comes to picking them.
Yeah, true. Now, Morocco and Iran. Any chance of an upset? Any chance of Morocco-Iran playing the role of the wrench and the monkey in this group?
As I said, I would give Morocco the better chance, only because, and I'm kind of lumping all of those North African teams in together, which isn't entirely fair. But if you look at the history of North African teams in the World Cup, they tend to be okay, but not great. Now, the other wild card, of course, with Morocco is that they're going to find out collectively, 2 days before they play their first game, whether or not they're going to be hosting the World Cup in 2026, and that could have an impact on their performance as well. If they were, they might find out sooner if they're kicked completely off. But if they're, I could see if the United bid wins this, that really derailing Morocco's World Cup completely, because there will be a lot of anger around that. And that'll be an interesting subplot to watch play out as well. But looking at their recent results, if you go back to the African Nations Championship in the final where they beat Nigeria 4-0, there was a red card involved in that. You're looking at a 3-1 win over Libya, 2-1 over Serbia. That's a decent result. 2-0 over Uzbekistan. These are the kind of where they've been. Those aren't, other than the Nigeria, which again was which was a final, so that's not dismissive. But other than that, not a lot of exciting results to look at with them to make you jump up and go, that's a team, that's a dark horse there. This is a team that looks like they're third or bust. Iran is always kind of what it is. I don't think there's much chance. They're in this to get a point, to get maybe a win against Morocco. This really is, in many ways, difficult to convince yourself otherwise that this isn't a two-tier group completely from top to bottom.
Yeah, of course. But now, here, let's take a look at the games quickly and try to handicap the group when it comes to the end of the group. June 15th, you got Morocco and Iran. This game is important, but not really. The most important game of the entire group is the second game, June 15th, Portugal, Spain. Does the winner of that game win the group?
You'd think so. Is that the best game of the entire group stage as well? A lot of people think so. I remember when that was first drawn, most people were circling that pretty quickly. Again, I don't want to belabor this. It's just very difficult to convince yourself any other scenario other than that being for the top of the group. Which means it'll be a dull 0-0. Don't kid yourself. That's how these things play out.
And then both teams are going to win like 3-0 against Morocco and Iran in the next two games, and we'll have a tie at the top, and it will be a coin flip.
Exactly. Quickly, Iran. We didn't mention Iran's results recent. They lost to Tunisia. They beat Algeria by a goal. beat Uzbekistan, lost to Turkey. So mixed bag there for sure. Not much you can really point to suggest again that this is a team ready to point at and be. Spoiler, there's not a lot of great history with the Middle Eastern teams doing particularly well at the World Cup. Some of the worst results, some of the most lopsided results in World Cup history have come from that region. Not much to give me confidence that this is going to be a different team.
And thank God Saudi Arabia's group is terrible, because we might have seen a record there this year too. Like, imagine if Saudi Arabia was in Brazil or Germany's group. That would not be pretty.
We've seen them in Germany's group, and it's part of, again, this poll that I'm running, which is I'm going to have all the first round of voting will be done today, so we'll have our final four. That Saudi Arabia 7-1 loss to Germany was always the one that jumps out at me, other than the other 7-1 result. But
the other 7-1, the 7-1 that we remember forever. It's crazy how one score explains it all. You say 7-1, everyone knows you're talking about 2014 Maracanã, Germany versus Brazil, and a lot of people crying.
I'm sure or 1-7 if you're Brazilian, I guess. You say 8-1 to Canadians, it means something different too. So yeah, those scores or 2-0. That's the scores can have meaning, and 7-1 certainly has meaning for German football. But we're not talking about Germany here. Kevin, what are we going? Spain, Portugal, or Portugal, Spain? Because I don't think either one of us thinks that's not going to be the two that advance.
I think it's a toss-up between the two. I think it really depends about the first game. It depends what type of goal scoring can Spain do with their lack of pure striker. Depends what kind of teamwork Portugal can do surrounding Ronaldo. It'll be between the two, and I'm going to go with Spain 1, Portugal 2, Morocco and Iran, whichever way you like.
There you go. All right, I think Spain will win the group, but we'll see. And then Spain is one of I haven't decided who my ultimate pick is in terms of who's going to win this damn thing, but they're in my consideration because, as I said a minute ago, all the way up, all the way down. Although I've already done two different predictions on two different shows that I've been asked to be on, and I picked a different country in both cases. So
yeah,
I'm just going to keep hedging my bet.
Keep your real predictions for our show. SportsPodcastingNetwork.com. World Cup Today is where you can find our predictions, our thoughts, and analysis of the upcoming World Cup. 2 weeks till we have a ball being kicked around. I can't wait. You can follow Duane on Twitter at 24th Minute and myself at Kev Laramee. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of World Cup Today. And as always, until then, you can find ad-free versions of our show at patreon.com/sports podcasting network, and for $2 a month you can get exclusive access to the Twos All Dudes Soccer Podcast, a podcast about Canadian soccer and Canadian soccer only, and for $5 you get your ad-free versions of podcasts. And as always, until tomorrow for another edition of World Cup Today, have a great soccer.